Jim Harold's Campfire is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Hiring used to be hard. Multiple job sites, stacks of resumes, a confusing review process. But today, hiring can be easy, and you only have to go to one place to get it done. ZipRecruiter.com/campfire. That's ZipRecruiter.com/campfire. Thanks, ZipRecruiter. Also, Jim Harold's Campfire is brought to you by Quip, the electric toothbrush that is revolutionizing brushing. Everyone, including me, loves Quip. Quip's been on Oprah's O-List and named one of Time's best inventions. Quip starts at just $25, and if you go to getquip.com/campfire right now, you'll get your first refill pack free with a Quip electric toothbrush.
Welcome to our gathering tonight. Here we share stories of ordinary people who have experienced extraordinary things. Sit back, relax, and warm yourself by Jim Harold's Campfire.
Welcome to the Campfire. I am Jim Harold, and so glad to be with you once again. And if you are new to the show, well, what we do here is we have real people, and they tell their real stories of the supernatural. Could be ghosts, could be UFOs, could be creepy cryptid creatures. But whatever is fascinating, and we certainly enjoy it. And we have callers from all over the world, as you'll see on this edition of the Campfire. And let's get right to it. Sahara is on the line from Buffalo. She's a new listener, been listening for about a month. Her friend from work, Tom, recommended the show. So I want to give a big shout out to Tom. Thanks, Tom. I hope everybody out there will do the same. Steer folks to jimharold.com/getcampfire. And there they'll find all the links to listen to the show on all the major podcast apps. It couldn't be easier. Sahara is going to tell us about an experience when she was living with a friend and some strangeness that ensued. Sahara, welcome to the program as a listener and a storyteller. Thank you for joining us, and tell us what happened.
Thank you for having me. Okay, so like you said, this was when I was living with my friend Darlene. Basically, I was renting a room from her. It was a pretty small room. Nothing had ever happened in the house before. I actually haven't had very many experiences, just a couple small things. But while I was living with her, I basically was going out with my friend Jordan at the time. We were just going to go get drinks and have fun. I was just getting ready, doing my hair, getting dressed and everything like that. So I basically just put my phone down for like a second on the end of my bed, on the corner of the end of my bed, and, went about my business. And I went to look and my phone wasn't there. So I was like, okay, well, maybe, I just put it somewhere. I didn't really think too much about it. I went downstairs in the kitchen, went to go get a drink, came back upstairs again, and started looking for my phone, thinking maybe I had just misplaced it. So I looked on the end of my bed again. It wasn't there. I looked underneath my bed. I actually opened up like the top dresser drawer, I think, maybe thinking I had put it in there. I wasn't really freaking out or anything. So I was like, maybe I had brought it down into the kitchen with me. I went down into the kitchen, tried to look on the countertops, any place that I had been. I couldn't find it. Still not freaking out. Went all the way back upstairs. At this point, it's still not there. I couldn't find it anywhere. And my phone is literally attached to my hip all the time. I have my phone with me all the time.
Sure.
So I tried to look for it, and I had all my blankets and my pillows all pushed up against the side of my bed. My bed was against the wall. So I thought, maybe I had somehow pushed it under there, even though I hadn't touched it. I searched underneath my pillows and my blankets. I couldn't find it anywhere. I searched under my bed again, started opening up all of my dresser drawers because I was going out with my friend. So I'm trying to, I have to get in contact with him. So I went all the way back downstairs again, thinking I went up and down the stairs 2 or 3 times. I actually started looking in the fridge, thinking that maybe when I had the drink, that maybe I had put it in the fridge for some reason. Still couldn't find it. So I literally went back upstairs again. And as soon as I opened up the door, wouldn't you know it, my phone is directly on the edge of my bed where I had left it the first time.
Interesting.
It was, yeah, it was very strange. So at that point, I got super freaked out. I literally just very firmly said no, like so loud. And nobody was in the house. Like nobody could have possibly touched the phone. Nobody had come in the house like all day. So I literally just said, no, this isn't happening. I'm leaving. And as soon as I said that, like I said, I've never had any type of like real paranormal type of experiences. But at this moment, when I said, no, I'm leaving, I felt as if there was some kind of presence or something very, very strongly that was standing directly behind me. It gave me the biggest chills that I have ever felt in my life. Even telling the story right now, it's giving me the creeps. I grabbed my phone. I literally had to pick it up to see if it was even real because I felt like this was a dream, like this couldn't be happening. I had literally left it here. It was gone. And then I picked it up again. And once I realized it was real, I got so creeped out. I put it in my purse, grabbed my stuff. I hadn't even finished getting ready at this point. And I turned around. And when I was leaving, I went down the stairs and I felt like this presence followed me. Like it almost felt not like it was not attached, but it felt so close to my back that it could have, I felt like it was going to try to push me down the stairs or grab me or do something because it felt really aggressive at this point. It felt so violent at the time that I got so freaked out and I actually calmly walked down the stairs. I'm surprised it didn't run. And it followed me all the way down to the stairs. And in the living room, in between the hallway, the upstairs hallway and the living room, there's like a glass door. And I had opened the glass door, felt this thing still behind me. And as soon as I walked through the threshold into the living room, it felt like the presence stayed in like right by that door. Like it was watching me walk all the way through the living room. And I felt it there and I left and it was, I didn't even know, like I came back later and everything was fine. But like, I really felt like something was about to reach out and grab me.
Now, what do you think was behind this?
Honestly, I'm not sure because like I said, I didn't have any experiences before this. I actually posted, I think on Facebook, something about, can anybody help me with this or something like that? And a friend had reached out and said that they knew a psychic. So the psychic had said that there was a child spirit that they thought was there, that they, told to go away at some point. So I didn't feel like it was a child, to be honest. Like it felt as if it was like, I don't know, just a really, really big, dark, menacing presence that was behind me. So I'm not really sure. I mean, looking back on it retrospectively and trying to think of what it could be. I mean, the only thing I could say was that it could be a ghost or something like that. Like nothing had happened before, but I don't know if maybe it was that it was trying to play with me or trick me or something. And then when I said no and possibly like maybe it got mad at me because I didn't want to play the game.
Interesting.
If that makes any sense.
Now you were staying here. Did that, I'm assuming you're not staying there anymore. Is that correct?
No.
Did that hasten your relocation?
Not that time. It was actually, I got more creeped out the second time. Just really, this is a super quick story, but this kind of came right, like maybe like a week after this. Me and, my roommate's granddaughter were sitting down watching like some kind of funny, I don't remember what it was, just a funny movie or something. And we were laughing and, she's a young girl. She has a, girly laughter and I also have girly laughter. And as soon as we laughed at something, there was actually this like deep man's voice, almost like mocking, going ha ha ha. That actually was right by the door.
You just give me like chills. That's freaky.
It was, and it like when I heard it, I try to, if I ever have anything, because I get so freaked out, I'm like, okay, I'll just ignore it. Like I didn't want to like pay attention to it. And then her head just whipped around so quick. And she says, did you just hear that? And once she said, oh my God, it solidified in my mind. And I was like, oh my God, like I was so freaked out. And yes, that definitely hastened me being like, okay, maybe I should leave. Very scary.
Kind of get the hint, Well, Sahara, I love that story. That is a great story. nothing followed you, I assume. Nothing after that, that was kind of the end of it?
Yeah, I didn't feel that anymore. I mean, me and my boyfriend, we actually just bought a house together, and it's a really big house, and I was getting kind of creeped out from it. We haven't had any type of experiences here, and I'm really hoping that we don't, but you will be the first person that
Excellent.
I call if we have
Excellent.
anything happen.
Well, for your sake, I hope that there aren't any more experiences, even though it would give us a great story. I hope that everything goes well with you and your boyfriend and the new house, and congratulations on that. And thank you for being a part of the campfire.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Well, we have a caller today from the Netherlands. Vaya is on the line. She's been listening for a couple of years, and she found us through Astonishing Legends. So thank you again, Astonishing Legends. And folks, if you haven't tried that podcast, certainly check it out. It is excellent. And Vaya is going to share some personal stories here. And Vaya, tell us about these stories. They sound fascinating. And thank you for joining us today all the way from the Netherlands.
Hi, Jim. Yes, thank you. The first story I want to tell is the one when I was around 5. I was living in a small apartment with my mom at the time. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, and my brother was still living at home. So he used the small bedroom, and I actually shared a bed with my mom. And on this particular night, my mom put me to bed at around 8, and I think it was around 9 because I was, fidgeting and I couldn't sleep. And the way the bedroom was situated was that we have this big window, and across from that was our bed. So I could actually, when I opened my eyes, I could just directly look at the window.
Right.
Next to the window was a closet, and on the side of the closet was a nail, and my mom or someone had actually put a stuffed doll hanging from it. So I was looking around, I couldn't sleep, and I saw where the doll was, that it was, darker than it was everywhere else, because the windows, there was actually some light coming through. So I was looking around, and it looked a little bit like a shadow, but it moved very fluidly, like almost like smoke, and it got bigger and bigger. And before I knew it, it turned into this into the back of a cat, like those typical images of cats, those
Right.
black cats, and its tail moving back and forth.
Wow.
And I thought it was really strange, but I couldn't look away. But I didn't feel scared either, until it actually started to move its tail and kind of beckoning me for me to come closer.
Ooh.
So it was moving very fluidly, and it was literally telling me to come closer. And I got so scared that I just screamed and I cried, and I actually asked my mom to turn on the lights. And my mom was, she got scared too, because she didn't know what the hell I was seeing. But after that, after she turned on the lights, there was nothing there. But we still can't really explain it, and I've never actually touched that stuffed doll ever again. I just threw it out. It was way too scary for me.
Oh, I'll be honest with you. I don't blame you. That sounds very, very frightening. And the thing that gets it is that one last piece, the beckoning. The beckoning.
Yes.
That's the most frightening. What was it beckoning you to? So, I mean, do you have a feeling of what do you think caused it? Or is it just one of those strange things that happens?
No, it was just, it was actually my first experience with anything paranormal. And I actually don't know. It was just very strange. And I actually always thought that there was some kind of creature living in the stuffed doll, but I'm
Well,
actually not sure.
I think that would be a natural, being very young, that would be a natural thought. Now, you also had a college experience. What was that one?
Yes, I didn't actually see anything back in college, but when I was 19, I lived in a dorm. It was on the 5th floor, and when you enter the elevator and you step out on the 5th floor, you have to go down this really long gallery. So my friend was staying over, and we actually did some tarot cards on the internet, which was really stupid. But you actually just type in a question, and you basically get a reading. And my friend actually did that because she just got out of a very long relationship, and she just needed that, I think. But I was really curious about, what it would say about me. So I just randomly took a card, and it actually said that something bad would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually got a bit scared because suddenly there was this shift in the atmosphere, and my friend was looking at me, and she wasn't really sure what to say. But it was already 2 a.m. So we decided, it's probably nothing. And I was going to, there was this bicycle stand where her bike was. And so it was 2 a.m. and I thought, I have to walk her downstairs because I can't leave her and go out on her own at 2 a.m. So we were walking down this long gallery, and halfway through, we were just talking, and suddenly I felt this immense feeling of being watched, and I cannot explain it. I just felt like I couldn't look back, and I looked at my friend who was beside me, and we just looked at each other and just laughed very nervously. But I could tell she was uncomfortable as well, and the feeling never really stopped until we got down to the 1st floor. And, when I got up, I was so scared because I just couldn't look behind me. I felt like there was someone there looking at me or just watching me. And it got so overwhelming that I just couldn't sleep. And I actually, the next morning, I told my friend, and she was like, yeah, I don't know how to tell you, but suddenly there was this weird feeling, and there was someone there with us. So I don't know what it was. I didn't actually see anything, but that was, it was one of the scariest memories actually for me.
Now, sometimes they say places, maybe have more activity. And then other times they say it's actually people, that some people tend to attract this kind of activity, or the activity is there and they just are more sensitive to it. Do you feel you fall into that category, that you kind of draw this kind of activity? Do you think there's that possibility?
Actually, I'm from an Asian family, and we're very superstitious. And the whole family has had some kind of experience with the paranormal. I haven't actually had much since I was little. But yeah, thinking about it, I think it might have to be somewhere either in the family or, my friend who was with me that night was from India. So I think that also played a role because she was very superstitious as well. And with the tarot cards and stuff, I think it might have played a role.
And then the final story that we're going to talk about, I believe today, is one that happened to you during a drive with your brother. Tell us about that one, if you would.
Yes. This one was actually back in 2011. My mother, she actually had to go to the hospital, and she was in a coma. And we didn't actually know if she would make it or not. So, my sister and my sister-in-law decided to stay and me and my brother were going to go back, as well as my brother-in-law and my nephew. And I was in the car with my brother, and my brother-in-law and nephew were following behind us. So we were in the car, nothing really going on, except, we were talking about what does this mean, if mom's not here anymore. And he actually at some point said something like, if mom actually passes away, I would not ever be afraid of anything anymore, because I believe that our mom would protect us. And my brother has always been very scared of ghosts. And so he actually said to the ghost in the car, like, you can come out if you want, but I'm not going to be scared because I know my mom is here to protect me. And right at that moment, right after he said that, I actually heard in my left ear someone saying something. And it was about 2 or 3 seconds and was like mid-sentence, but I couldn't really make out what that person was saying. And I was so tired that day, with the whole happening going on with our mom and stuff. So I actually brushed it off until my brother actually looked at me and he was like, "What did you say?" And I freaked out because he heard it too. So I looked at him and I said, I didn't say anything. I thought it was you, and we just freaked out in a car. And he was saying like, oh God, what did I do? And I made a horrible mistake, but it was very brief, but it was, I don't know, it was so surreal because it was just the two of us in the car, and I actually brushed it off already until he actually confirmed that he had heard it too.
Well, that's really spooky. I mean, the idea of hearing this third voice, that's kind of spooky. Well, Vi, I really appreciate you taking time. We love to hear from international callers. I wish we would hear from more. I think the encouragement is starting to work because we're hearing from more international callers. When we first started the show way back in 2009, we got a lot of international callers. Then it became very U.S. based, which of course we love our American callers too. I'm American, but we love to hear from people from different parts of the world. And I think it helps a lot because we know that it's not just to our culture. It's not just in our place, but people all over the world are having these experiences.
Yeah, and I actually decided to call in because I heard other callers from other countries, because I actually thought it was just US based. So, that gave me the push to actually call in.
We are everywhere. And so if you're listening to this, please sign up and over at jimharold.com/campfire. Regardless, we'll find a time to make it work for you internationally. And Via, thank you again for being a part of the program.
Yes, thank you very much.
Jim Harold's Campfire is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Hiring used to be hard. Multiple job sites, stacks of resumes, a confusing review process. But today, hiring can be easy, and you only have to go to one place to get it done, and that's ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards. But they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and invite them to apply to your job. And as applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one and spotlights the top candidates so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. Now, I got to tell you, that is amazing to me because before I was a full-time podcaster for a while, I had a job where I had to hire people. I was a hiring manager, actually. And I knew the people were out there, but there was no way to connect. There was no way to flip that switch to make that connection. And this was in the 2000s, so the internet was just a baby. But to me, think about that. 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. I'll tell you, those kind of results, I would have flipped for them. It would have been great. Alas, it wasn't there then, but it is certainly there now. So with results like that, it's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is the highest rated site in America. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/campfire. That's ZipRecruiter.com/campfire. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/CAMPFIRE. ZipRecruiter.com/campfire. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Thanks, ZipRecruiter. Carrie is on the line from Colorado, and she was first a listener to the Paranormal Podcast and found out about the campfire and started listening to this show too. So if you're not familiar, check out the Paranormal Podcast. You can find out how to listen to it by going on your favorite podcast app or jimharold.com/getparanormal. And anyhow, Carrie has a very personal story for us, and this one is about her dad. Carrie, thank you for joining us and for sharing this very meaningful and personal story.
Thank you. So yeah, this is very personal. It might be a little sad, but it has a kind of a comforting ending. To start to give a background, I was raised in a very religious household. My father was very religious, and, he believed in guardian angels and all that. So to have that as a background, so my father passed away in 2001 of prostate cancer. And towards when he got, a little worse, he went into hospice, and he was at home during that time. So my mother and I would take turns kind of watching and taking care of him when the nurse wasn't there. So one day I was sitting there next to my dad watching TV. And I should say during that time, he was in and out of consciousness, very heavy medicated, just to try to make him as comfortable as possible. So he couldn't really talk. He could point to things and nod his head and kind of groan, but he couldn't really form sentences very well. So while I was sitting there watching TV with them, this was probably around 3 p.m, I hear a knock at the back door. Mm-hmm. 3 knocks. And as clear as day, my dad opens his eyes and says, "Come in." And not really thinking much of it, I just look at him and I was like, "It's okay, Dad, I'll go see who it is." So I go to the back door and I don't see anyone. And I figured, okay, maybe they walked around to the front door because, no one came to the back door. So I walk outside and, I walk around to the front door and I don't see anybody. And as I'm kind of walking back inside the house, I noticed that everything is a bit quiet. It was the summertime and, usually you hear birds or something, but it was kind of just very still and very kind of almost calming in a way. Mm-hmm. So as I'm walking back in the house, my mom pulls in. She's coming home from work. And so I help her she had some groceries, so I help her into the house. And as we put things down, we walk into the bedroom to check on my dad, and he had passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So thinking about that, after the funeral and all that, I thought about those knocks at the door, and I told my mom what had happened. And I was like, "Mom, there was a knock at the door, and Dad said, 'Come in,' very clearly."
Right.
And without blinking, she just looked at me and she goes, "Well, that was his angel. That was his guardian angel coming to take him home."
Wow.
So I found that a little comforting, but also it gave me goosebumps. It still gives me goosebumps every time I think about it or tell that story. So after a couple months went by, I had just moved into a little studio apartment. It was my first apartment that I lived on my own. I was in my 20s, so I didn't have much furniture. So I kind of slept in a mattress on the floor in this little hallway type area to kind of give you an image. So it was a small little studio apartment. Well, one night I wake up and I see a man standing over me. And of course, I jump up. I kind of swing my arms in defense and I scream. And as I'm sitting up and I look, he's fading into the wall.
Oh my.
But smiling at me. And as I'm staring at him, I could see that it was my dad.
Cool.
He had the face of my dad. So, of course, I call my mom. It's probably 3:30 in the morning. And usually if I call her that late, she's like, what's wrong?
Right.
But
sure.
She just said hello. And I was like, I told her what had happened. And she goes, that's just your dad checking in on you. If he scared you, just let him know that you love him, but not to do that again. So I did. I said, Dad, I know that was you. I love you. I miss you. But please don't ever do that again because you scared me. and you know, I unfortunately that never happened again. But I know that he's still there. He's still looking over me. So it made me that kind of got me into the whole paranormal and spirits and your loved ones visiting you in the afterlife, just checking in on you. So
I believe it, certainly. And the thing is that, you know, and I've said this before on the show, I'm repeating myself, but I think sometimes when people think about the paranormal, they only think about the scary and the spooky aspects and those kind of things. And that's certainly part of the picture, obviously. And sometimes we kind of play that up for entertainment value and those kind of things. But quite honestly, I think an equal part of it are the very kind of hopeful stories. Yeah, bittersweet, sad, but also with hope that you're going to see them again and that they are still around, maybe not physically, but they are still around for us. I believe that is a real thing, Carrie. It sounds like to me that's exactly what happened to you.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
Carrie, thank you for sharing this very, very personal story on the campfire.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Alyssa is on the line from Wyoming. She's been listening for a few months, and she says a short story for us, but it sounds very powerful, and it revolves around when she was a teenager. Alyssa, welcome to the program, and tell us what happened.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me. It's a pretty quick story, and I've never really had an explanation for it, but I grew up in a really small town, and we lived in a house. It was kind of like a modular home type of thing, and it wasn't very old or anything. I think we were probably the second family to live there, but my mom started babysitting from our home, and we had one little girl that we watched pretty regularly. And when I was a teenager, one of my chores was to make dinner. So in the house from the kitchen, we had kind of like a cutout, and you could see into the back dining room and into the living room. And so I would watch her as she was playing and stuff. And for about a week in a row, she would be in the living room. This little girl was probably 3 or 4 at the time. But she would be in the living room, and she was running around. And for about a week, she was acting like she was talking to somebody. She was having a conversation, acting like someone was chasing her. It was just kind of weird. And so one day I had asked her who she was talking to. And she said that she was talking to the girl that lived in the ceiling. And that was really weird. We didn't have an attic or anything.
That's weird.
So it was very random. And so I asked her, does your friend have a name? And she always referred to the girl in the ceiling as Brittany. And so it was that's just kind of how it was. Well, it kind of clicked for us. I think everybody in the family, my little sister included, we noticed that the dogs would often come through the living room and bark at that same corner of the ceiling. And it was always kind of just like a weird quirk they had. We had 3 dogs. and all three of them would do it, always at different times. There wasn't ever like a cue or anything. They just would bark at the ceiling every now and then. And so it was just kind of weird.
And the dogs did this, and the dogs did this regardless if she was there, and after for a long time they would do this.
Right. Yeah. We watched her. We watched her for probably about 3 months or so. Mm-hmm. And they were doing this for years before then. Wow. And so we had our oldest dog, Max. He was the one to start it. Probably he was the most aggressive with it. I'm not sure what it was. It was, they would just bark at that same corner, the same one where this Brittany thing lived. And, so I think when she had said that, it kind of clicked for all of us that it was just weird. We didn't have an explanation for it. And then that was probably the biggest thing that happened in that house.
Right.
My little sister would get really freaked out, when we were quite a bit younger. We lived in that house until I was 15 or 16, and we moved there when I was about 10. And so, when my little sister's a year younger than I am. And so when I was 12, 13, she was 11 or 12. I remember her getting kind of freaked out. She didn't want to sleep in her room by herself and that kind of thing, but we never really had a reason why. She just had this uneasy feeling about it. And then there was one time I remember standing in the kitchen. And so in the kitchen if you're like facing the refrigerator, on the left side, you can see into the living room. And on the right side, there was a smaller dining room, and the front of the house, the front door and everything was there. And I was walking into the kitchen from the living room, dining room side. And I had seen a little boy standing at the refrigerator. And I was like, that's really weird. But my sister had friends over all the time. And, sometimes there were just people in my house that I didn't know very well. And so I turned away for a second, and I turned around and he wasn't there. And my dad was in the other room. So I called for him and I was like, Dad, who is this little kid in the house? And my dad was like, Alyssa, there's nobody here. It was really weird. I don't remember being scared. It was just more like, what the heck was that? And then I guess the last thing that happened, when I was like 13 or 14, I had a friend of mine who lived in a town about 20 miles over. And so we were on the phone all the time. And my parents both worked during the day. My little sister was often at a friend's house. And so I was in the house by myself this day. And in the front of the house, we had like a living area with a computer desk and things. And so I was just playing video games on the computer, talking to my friend on the phone. And I didn't know that my little sister wasn't home. I thought when we were kids, we liked to watch TV in my parents' room. And so I thought she was just in there watching TV. And I heard from the hallway someone yell, "Hey." And my friend Bailey heard it too. And she was like, "Why is Casey calling for you?" She had heard it enough on her end of the line to ask me about it. And so I said, "I don't know. I didn't realize that she was home, I guess." And so I went searching for my little sister, and she was nowhere to be found. I was in the house totally by myself. And so my friend, do not hang up the phone. She stayed on the phone with me the entire time until my parents got home, because I was just terrified after that.
The thing is that, the imaginary friend story, that one really, really sticks with me. And the thing that I wonder, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, Alyssa, is I wonder how many times kids say that they have an imaginary friend. And I do believe that there are, I don't think every imaginary friend is a ghost. Let me be very clear about that. But I wonder if there, a significant amount of times when somebody says they have an imaginary friend and maybe it's not so imaginary. Maybe it is some kind of spirit or some kind of ghost. What do you think?
I think it's possible. I don't know where I stand on believing in ghosts and things. I'm not somebody who's had a lot of personal experiences, but I do know people who have. I do think that there are things out there that we're never going to be able to explain. And I think that might be one of those things. There was never a death in the house. There wasn't anything like that. It was a fairly new home and only been on that plot for about 20 years. I mean, it was pretty new. It was a really weird thing. And I probably wouldn't have thought anything of it had that not been the spot where the dogs would bark at as well.
Very interesting stuff. Alyssa, thank you for joining us around the campfire.
Thanks, Tim.
Jim Harold's Campfire is brought to you by Quip. It's an electric toothbrush that's revolutionizing the way that we brush our teeth. And once I got introduced to Quip, well, I learned something. And honestly, I'd never really thought about it. You know, the truth is that most of us are brushing our teeth wrong. Now, it's something you think you've known since childhood, but we've been doing it wrong. We don't brush for long enough, and we forget to change our brushes on time. Now, I kind of blame myself for that. You know, I'm in my 40s and soon to be another decade, but we won't get into that. But the point is that I blame myself, but not so much. Unfortunately, it's kind of the way we've been conditioned, because most brands, when they're marketing, they focus on selling flashy gimmicks, not better brushing. But that's not Quip. Let me tell you why Quip is so different. For starters, Quip is an electric toothbrush that's just a fraction of the cost of the bulkier brushes, while it still packs just the right amount of vibrations to help clean your teeth. Quip has a built-in timer that helps you clean for the dentist-recommended 2 minutes with guiding pulses that remind you when to switch sides. So basically, you're holding it, but it is holding your hand. Quip is telling you what to do. And again, these are things we don't think about. We throw a toothbrush in our mouth and we just go at it, and we're not doing it the right way, folks. So that's why you need to get Quip. The thing about Quip is their subscription plans are there for your health, not just convenience. Although they are very convenient. They deliver new brush heads on a dentist-recommended schedule every 3 months for just $5, including free shipping worldwide. And I got to tell you, it's that set it and forget it thing that I love. Now, with my regular toothbrush, well, I don't even want to tell you how long it had been since I'd changed the brush. But now that I've converted to Quip, that comes every 3 months, and you know you don't have to think about it. And the less I have to think about it, believe me, the better. The Quip also comes with a mount that suctions right to your mirror and unsticks to use as a cover for hygienic travel wherever you take your teeth. And the thing is, it's not just me. Everyone is loving on Quip. I got to tell you this. They were on Oprah's O List. They were named one of Time's best inventions. And this, to me, is really important. They were the first subscription electric toothbrush accepted by the American Dental Association. That's Quip. Plus, they're backed by a network of over 20,000 dentists and hygienists, and hundreds of thousands of happy brushers use Quip every day. And the best news of all is we got you a deal. Now, Quip starts at just $25, but if you go to getquip.com/campfire right now, that's getquip.com/campfire, you'll get your first refill pack free with a Quip electric toothbrush. That's your first refill pack free at getquip.com/campfire. Again, spelled out, getquip.com/campfire. It's one of those things that you take for granted, but if you think about it, it's one of the most important things you can do for your health each and every day. And that's why Quip wants you to brush better, and they're going to help you do it. So again, go to getquip.com/campfire, get the deal, and get the best brush of your life with Quip. Thanks, Quip. John is on the line from Ontario, Canada. Boy, it's good to hear voices from up north. We're trying to grow our listenership up there. So if you're up in Canada, please tell all your friends, send them to jimharold.com/getcampfire. And there it's pretty self-apparent how they can get the show. And John is going to tell us about unusual experiences surrounding a girlfriend and what happened subsequently. He's also a podcaster on the Supernatural. He's going to tell us a little bit after his story about that as well. John, welcome to the show and tell us what happened.
Okay, thanks for having me, Jim. I'm a big fan, so it's a pleasure to tell you my story.
Great to talk with you.
Okay, so 10 years ago, I met a woman that it turns out I'm going to be someone I'm going to spend the rest of my life with.
Cool.
We each have our own home. And every time I would go to her house, right from the get-go, I would feel uncomfortable. I'd feel like I was watched. I remember walking around in her home. You would feel like someone's right up your back. And it got to the point where you would literally spin around thinking someone's there, but of course there's nobody there. As the relationship grew and it became very serious, I can remember waking up multiple times in this home to the weight of someone sitting on the end of the bed. And I remember you jump up because you think there's someone in the house and there's nobody there. And that happened many times. From there, I remember I was in the home alone one time, and I'm on the main floor, and then all of a sudden you can hear doors begin to slam, and it's in the upstairs level, bedroom level. And then when I say slam, I mean slam violently. So picture in your mind the sound of 3 bedroom doors, 2 bathroom doors, closet doors, all slamming. And I probably froze for at least 20 seconds before I got the nerve to run up there and see what was going on. It was that loud. It's wintertime up here in Canada. It's freezing. There's no windows open, so it's not blowing in the wind. I run up there. The minute I get to that level, it stops. And I searched around. You want somebody to be there playing a joke on you, but no, there's nobody there. It's just me. So needless to say, when the relationship becomes really serious, we're going to move in together. I said, I'm not moving into this house. Sorry. So
I love you, but I can only go so far.
That's exactly right. So we decided to move into my house, but we were going to renovate her home. It was an old house, and we're going to maximize the value that she's going to get for it. So the minute I start doing some renovations there, doing demolition, things began to ramp up even further. So to give you an example, I'm in the kitchen and I'm tearing up old counters and drywall and all that different stuff. And then all of a sudden, it's like someone's in the basement and they just smoke the floor right where you're standing with a sledgehammer. Scare you to death. That happened multiple times. I can remember one time it hitting the floor so hard, I still remember the sound of the windows vibrating. It was that powerful. I remember telling people, and they're going, well, John, old homes settle and all. You know what? I don't care what anyone says. A home doesn't settle like that. And it would move around and follow me in the house as I did. And that's the kind of stuff that would happen. I began for the first time in my life to see shadow people in my peripheral vision. Tools would go missing. That was the most frustrating thing. When you're doing construction without a measuring tape, you're dead in the water. We're working on the main floor. We're not even in the upper level. And you'd look around and then you'd find your measuring tape in a bedroom in the middle of the floor. Sometimes it would disappear and we'd have to actually go out and buy another one.
Ooh.
All the time, that kind of stuff happening. So then we're muddling through. We get down to the last room in the house and a little bit of work in the bathroom. I'm done. And I'm like, thank God I can get out of this house and put this behind me. I walk into the master bedroom and this garbage can begins to rattle. Then it begins to vibrate, and now it starts to shake back and forth violently. I can remember watching this garbage can, and I can't believe it's not falling over. When it finally stopped, I remember, I want to please be an animal in there. It's an old house, there's a squirrel or something in that thing, but there's nothing in there but garbage. I poked around, there's nothing. I remember I'm standing in the middle of that bedroom, and I'm looking towards the bathroom I need to work in, and I'm thinking, do I really want to be here right now? That just unsettled me so much. Then I realize, as I look towards that bathroom, there's a nail just levitating through the air about 3.5, maybe 4 feet off the ground.
Oh, man.
And I saw it for about that 4 feet or so in the air, and then it dropped to the ground. But how far it traveled before I picked it up, I have no idea. Then when the nail hit the ground, within seconds, a piece of paper off the bathroom vanity just takes off like something grabbed it and whipped it.
Oh, man.
The windows are closed, so there's no wind that blew it. From there, I remember I'm backing away. I've got 3 things that I can't explain, and I don't want to be here anymore. And then the room turned to ice. And I mean, like, it's all of a sudden I'm looking in a meat locker. And I remember I stood there kind of frozen. I'm a little bit probably in shock, I'll admit it. And then from the bathroom, out of my line of sight, the far side of the bathroom, I can hear what sounds like somebody running, heavy footsteps. And now they're coming through the bathroom, and I'm expecting to see someone run through that door coming towards me. And I can hear bang, bang, these heavy footsteps on the floor. And through the door, I can still hear the footsteps, but there's nobody there. And now it's coming at me. And I remember as it's going to reach me, I remember actually putting my hands up to block this invisible thing that I can't see, but I know it's running right at me. I can hear it. At that moment, I'm covered with what I would describe as cobwebs, like when you walk into a spider web, but it's all over me. My arms, my hair, my face, everywhere. And at the same time, I've got static and like an electrical sensation all over my body. And I remember as I'm rubbing my arms, my face, trying to get this sensation off me, the longer I stood there, the more uncomfortable this electrical feeling became. And at that point, I said, okay, I'm out of here, and I'm running to the stairs. And I will say this till the day I die. When I got to the top of the stairs, I didn't stub my toe. I didn't trip. I didn't lose my balance. I was pushed. And at the top of those stairs, that's 16 steps to the bottom. The only thing that stopped me from going down those stairs head first was that it was such a narrow stairway. I was actually able to kind of grab the railing, bounce off the wall, catch my footing, and then away I go. Halfway down the stairs, I got pushed again. And this time pushed so hard that I ended up in a heap on the bottom of the stairs. As a point of reference, just to give you an idea, I'm 5'11", I'm 210 pounds, and something had the power to push me so hard that it just took me right off my feet.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Intimidating to say the least, right?
Yeah, of course.
So the home got finished. I'm in my own home now. We're done. It's behind me. I'm like, thank God, this place is in the rearview mirror. I don't have to deal with this anymore. And I'm in my living room. And then next thing you know, beside my TV, out of the wall, walks this massive shadow person. And I've never seen anything like this in my life. And even now telling you I'm getting goosebumps just to think about it. And it walked into my living room, just came out of a wall. Every step it took, you could hear my hardwood floors just heaving as it walked. It was that like mass to it. When it walked past the lamp, it blocked the light. It was easily 7 feet tall. And then it turned and just looked at me head on, face not out of my peripheral, but I mean head on. And it just stood there. Now I'm terrified. I remember I'm probably hyperventilating. Adrenaline's going crazy. I just want to get out of this room. But where it's standing is the way to get out of the room. So I just sat there staring at it. And then finally, mercifully, after I'm going to say 30 seconds, it turned, walked into a wall and disappeared. And now this became a daily occurrence, daytime or night, usually multiple times a day, this thing would show up. And it would show up for itself, the maximum effect. So you walk into the kitchen, you turn the corner, and boom, it'd come out of the wall. This happened all the time. Then things progressed to where now I'm getting punched. I'm getting hit. To give you an idea, Jim, a good night for me would be if I was just like roughly pushed like someone's trying to wake you up. I would be hit with enough force that I would have bruises, marks left on my body from it. And when I finally decided I got to get help, I got to do something about this, because you got to remember that originally I was a total non-believer. This is crazy. This can't be true. I woke up one night screaming because my foot is being squeezed so hard. The next day it's bruised. It actually hurt to walk on it. So I called a paranormal group and they came and did an investigation, and I made a bargain with myself. I remember saying, if they come back and they don't find anything,
right, then
you're going nuts and you're going to have to go seek help. And mercifully, they came back and they found all kinds of paranormal evidence, EVPs, anomalous energy readings, all those different things. They said, you're not going crazy. Encouraged the help of a psychic. To make a long story short, this psychic, the minute she came in, the hitting stopped. She began to empower me how to deal with the situation, help me understand about my fear is feeding this. And to make a long story short, from there, I went from being somebody who literally at times ran out of my own home to get away from the activity. Now I'm running towards the activity. I have a podcast, the Phantom Faction, with two very talented gentlemen that I work with. And we search out people like myself to help them. A really good friend of mine, Dan, and I, we about once a week now, we clear a home of poltergeist activity. Mm-hmm. And so I've gone from running from this kind of stuff to now actually running to it to help people. It changed my life, but the years in between, it was a struggle to get there, but we've come out on the other side.
So you've not run away from this. You're kind of dealing with it and trying to help others deal with it.
Yeah, but it took a little while. I began to, it's almost like this became an awakening. I began to see things and it wasn't going away. I started to notice and recognize things that I never did before. And now it's just kind of evolved into this. And so that's what we're doing now. We're trying to help people because I know how it feels. I remember how terrified I was. My better half, I never even told her. She never experienced anything. Mm-hmm. I kept thinking people think I'm crazy.
What do you think was behind it?
One of the psychics told me that this spirit, you changed his mother's house and you didn't pick up on all his warning signs. And it was almost like it became an attachment, and he wanted to punish me for changing the environment, I guess, because he was still existing in that space, if you will. And all of the things she said that he did, and it was amazing. She told me stuff that I didn't tell her. Like she said, the garbage can you never recognized. She said the banging he did, you never recognized. And that was his frustration with me not getting the message. And it just boiled over to where he followed me to my home, that he's going to really kind of show his anger and frustration with me.
Interesting. So tell folks one last time the name of the podcast and where they can find it.
Okay, so we're the Fandom Faction Podcast, and we are on iTunes, CastBox, and Google Play.
Very good. And John, please tell all of your countrymen and countrywomen, please listen to the show.
We will. Hey, everybody in the group, we love you, and we are listening, and we'll keep passing it on.
Okay, thanks so much, John, and all the best with your podcast, too.
Thanks very much. Take care, Jim.
Something very, very cool today. We have Ali all the way from Bolivia, and I do believe that she is our first caller ever from Bolivia, and we're so glad to have her. And she has a story that really spans 11 years, but she's going to encapsulate it for us, and we're so glad to have her. Ali, welcome all the way from Bolivia. Thank you so much for taking time to be on the campfire today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us this story.
All right. Well, I don't really remember the exact date of when this happened, but it was around like 2004, 2005. I was probably 7 or 8 years old at the time. My parents and I lived in an apartment in Naples, Florida. So It was pretty small. There was only one bedroom, and the kitchen and the living room were together. And what separated my room from the rest of the other rooms was just a big bookshelf and a small curtain. And I remember it was probably like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was watching this movie, The Incredibles. I think it just came out. And my mom came out of her room, and she's like, "You need to go to bed. It's late." So as soon as she went back to her room and closed the door, I stood up and I turned the TV off, and I took like about 5 steps, and I froze, and I felt someone behind me. I felt someone was, like going to grab me, or I felt so much fear. And by the reflection of the TV, I was looking at myself, and I also was looking at someone behind me. It was like if I had a shadow, but it wasn't like we normally see it on the floor. It was like if someone had a black jumpsuit and was standing like right beside me.
Oh man.
And I just froze. I just stood there for like about 10 minutes, or at least that's what it felt like. I was extremely scared. And after a while, my mom came out and she's like, "Alejandra, go to bed right now." And I, I ran behind the bookshelf, and I got into my bed, and I turned off the light, and I started hearing someone whistling. I don't remember the tune. I just remember whistling. It was like clear. I could hear it everywhere. And in my mind, since we lived in an apartment, it was like a 2-story apartment. And I remember I remember imagining a man walking across the room above us, and then down the hall, and then slowly going down the stairs. And while I imagined that, I heard the whistling got closer, and my mom, and I started crying, and I started to panic, right? And my mom came out, and she kind of was like mad because it was like the 3rd time she had to come out of the room. And she's like, "What happened?" And like, "Don't you hear it? There's like someone whistling, and I hear it coming closer, and I'm really scared." So she never said anything, but she just hugged me. And since I'm an English teacher, I recently told my students about the story. And one of my students, she's like, whoa, teacher. And she's freaked out. She's like, "Teacher, oh my God, that's the silbaco." And I'm like, what, or who is that? And she explained to me that it's a Bolivian legend where if there is a man whistling, it's because normally someone close to you or a family member is going to die.
Oh my.
And I just probably 3 weeks ago, I just found this out. Yeah. So going back to the story, my dad at that time traveled to Bolivia for a few weeks to visit his dad and his mom and, family. And he came back, and a few days passed, and my grandfather died. Of course, I didn't really, connect the whistling with my grandfather's death. But from what I hear now, who knows? Right. After that night, for me, it all went downhill because I had nightmares every single night for about 12 years. And this year in April, they kind of stopped. And but I would always have nightmares about, like demons, witches, aliens, monsters, devils, and all of it. Like all you could imagine, I would dream it. And the thing is that we would constantly move. So the time that I was living in the States, it was like almost 9 years,
Mm-hmm.
but I lived in almost 13 different states. So I would be, constantly moving. And I thought, oh, it would go away or something, no? But it didn't. And I would have like 2 or 3 different nightmares per night, or sometimes I would wake up from one nightmare and, like, okay, I'm not going to sleep. And then I would go back to sleep and it would continue just like if I would have paused it, And that was creepy for me. And so it was very irritating for me. And I hated it, not because only I stopped sleeping, but because I was getting paranoid. I would start to see things, feel things, imagine things, hear things. When we lived in the States, the nightmares, were moderate. But once we moved here to Bolivia, which was probably 2008, it got really bad. Not only the nightmares, but, uh, all my senses, I guess I kind of went crazy. And my parents are, like very Catholic. And the house that we're living in now, it's going to be like 6 years. They called the priest, and the priest blessed the house. But, ever since they bought the house, it was like kind of something off about the house. It was always cold and dark, At night, the air, it would feel really, really heavy. It had like weird vibes, And I would always hear these rumors from, little kids. Oh, this house or the whole neighborhood was built over a cemetery. But, they're little kids. So I was like, nah. And, well, I remember like the first things that started happening is that I would sleep with my door open because my room faces my parents' room. So they can see me and I can see them. And there were about like 5 nights that I remember this. And I started hearing my dad call me. He'd be like, Ale, Ale, Ale. And I'd be like, yes, or what? And he wouldn't answer. He would only keep saying my name. But it would be like after like 3-4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And since I could see them, sleeping, it would actually be weird for them to see my dad sleeping and hear him calling my name. So I was like, okay, that's creepy. And at first I thought he was just playing because he knows how paranoid I am. And I would always go like to bed and like, what are you doing? Why are you calling me? He's like, no, I'm not calling you. Or sometimes he just wouldn't answer because he was just, sleeping. And like the third night of this happening, it wasn't like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It was like 1 week this and the other week that, And I think the third night or something, I have 3 dogs, right? But they sleep in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And one night I heard like sniffing and I heard like a light scratch. And I'm like, oh, my dog got in or something. And I went to open it. It was like probably 4 a.m. or something. And there was nothing there. So like, oh, okay, no, that's not, I'm going to bed. And after like 4 or 5 nights, it would just be like knocking on my door, like just 3 knocks, but it wouldn't be like loud or something. It would be like someone shy knocking. I don't know. It was really weird, but I shrugged it off, and forgot about it. After that, I just, kind of like saw shadows from the corners of my eyes. It would be weird. It would be uncomfortable for me. And I told my parents, but my parents, laughed it off. They didn't really believe me. They're super skeptical.
Right.
And since I'm a real, fan of all these kind of things, I would always read about the paranormal and listen to it and watch videos and movies, documentaries, everything that I could watch and read. I was there. Alejandra was the first one. Until things started getting like really creepy in my room. The bed in my room is facing the door. And I would always dream of this like demon girl who would always talk to me in my dreams, saying that she would always be there for me. She's never going to leave my side, but in a bad way. And I remember like having this fear just looking at my door. Like I knew that there was something on my door, like right on my door, like right in the corner. It was just really creepy. And 2 of my nightmares that I remember pretty clearly is I remember seeing my dad in my dream, sleeping on the couch, and they were like, no, my dad has diabetes. He's had diabetes for over like 20 years now.
Right.
And in my dream, I saw my dad lying on the couch and there were like 7 demons or 9 demons like right around him, and they were like telling him stuff, whispering awful things in his ear, like you're worthless or stuff like that. You should kill yourself, or something like that. And one of them, like, have you seen? Of course, you've seen Harry Potter, but I don't know what it's called when, like, one of those floaty thingies sucks the life out of you.
Neither do I, but I've seen it.
Okay, yeah,
I know what
you
you're
get the
talking
point.
about.
So that's what I saw in my dream, and I got so scared. But like, I was frustrated because always in my dream, I could never, I was never conscious in my dream. I could never do anything consciously. So I just like watched it as a movie. And I remember this demon like just sucking the life out of my dad. And then I woke up, and then the next morning, I remember, like walking out of my room, and then I stopped because I heard my dad talking to my mom, saying that he was worthless, he didn't want to live anymore, and stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, this can't be happening. And then the second time, it was like almost the same dream, except the demon that like was above my dad touched my dad on the chest. And then my dad started having kind of like a seizure or something. And then I woke up, and it was probably like 5 a.m. And my mom walked into my room. And she's like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I had this dream. And she's like, is it about your dad? And I obviously freaked out. I'm like, yes, what happened? We're taking him to an emergency room because he almost slipped into a coma. So I was like, whoa, what's going on? And another topic, I never really liked my room because it would always feel like dark. I would always feel a dark presence, as if someone was watching me. And it was always I was always terrified to get up because I would feel like someone was going to grab me, or I was going to bump into someone. And it was just horrible. And I've always had like sleep paralysis, but there were only like 2 times where I actually saw one shadow person, and the other I saw like kind of like hooves, and I'll go into that in a second. But the thing is that my sleep paralysis are very different from what I hear from other people, because what I hear from other people is like they wake up like lying on the bed and they can't move, and they just move their eyes, right? But my sleep paralysis is that like I wake up and I can sit up and I can move, but like 3 seconds later, I feel like someone slams me on my bed, and then I just feel paralyzed, and then I start imagining things and hearing things. And just recently, like 2 weeks ago, I had one, and I saw a shadow person, but I wasn't scared. But I did start to panic a little bit, and it only lasted like about 15 seconds. And then I woke up. And do we still have time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. There's another story where, I don't know if I mentioned this, but there was something really dumb that I did like last year. I drank 2 bottles of wine on a Sunday night. And
hey, don't feel too bad of it, because I don't know about 2 bottles of wine, but I remember something about me and buckets of beer, and I won't go into it. So most of us have been there, so that's okay.
All right. Well, the thing is that I've never drunk anything in my life before, but I don't know why. That night I did. It was like probably 8 o'clock, and I locked myself in my room and I started watching some series, and I remember just drinking them in under like 40 minutes. And I remember calling a friend, and we started talking, and the next thing I remember was like 4 a.m. And I'm like, yo, I don't feel so well. I'll call you later. So the next day I didn't hear from him. And then the next day I didn't hear from him. And then, kind of like a week. And I called him like, hey, what's wrong? He's like, oh, yeah, you just freaked me out. And I'm like, no, what happened? You told me every single nightmare that you had. I'm like, no, I don't remember that. And he started telling me stuff. I'm like, oh my God, yes, I did. And the thing that like, I was kind of skeptical, because I thought he was kind of like joking around with me when he said,
right.
And also you gave me the 2 names of the demons that you dream about. And I was like, but I don't even know them. Like, how do you know? But yes, you told me. I don't remember the first one that he told me, but the second name that he told me was Baphomet, like Baphoeomet, Baphomet.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked him up, and yeah, scary guy. And he told me, yeah, you should go to church. You should see a priest. You should see a like pastor and everything. And after that, like talk with my friend, I started having like visual, or I don't know how to say it, dreams, I guess, about this Baphomet guy, you know, and he would, I would just be calm, and he would be like, call me, call out for me, call my name, and I'll be there, you know, stuff like that. He would tell me in my dreams.
Oh my.
And I said, yeah, and I started to freak out. And one day, my best friend, her name is Daniela, shout out, and she's a Christian, and I told her about it, and she's like, okay, but don't mess around with it, stop it, ignore it. And one day I had like 20 minutes to take a nap and then go to work. And I was like, okay, you know what's the worst thing that could happen? You know, give me your best shot. What you gonna do? And just as I said that, I fell asleep, and I had one of the worst nightmares ever. Have you seen Insidious?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, but there's this part where there's this little kid that's kind of like in a cellar or something, like kind of stuck, and the demons from the second floor like watching him constantly or something like that. And that was kind of my dream, but I was in kind of like a paralysis state where I could like wake up and I could see him and then go back to sleep and stuff like that. And just that night, my best friend called me like at 4 a.m. and she's like, are you okay? Did something happen? And I'm like, yes, what happened? She's like, I just had a nightmare. I had a nightmare about this guy. It was a demon. His name was Baphomet or something that I don't remember. She told me. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And she said, well, he was saying Alejandra, Alejandra, Alejandra at the bed of my, at the feet of my bed. And I kept, you know, like praying and pushing it away until I got tired and I fell asleep. But I was really scared. Don't do that again. What did you do? And I told her everything. And, you know, she got mad. She told me not to mess with those things. And this is going to be really short. After a while, you know, I kind of like stopped having constant nightmares. Instead of like 7 days a week, it would be like 4. And last year in August, my mom traveled to Spain. She's been living there it's going to be 1 year. And just as my mom left, things started happening. Things started going missing in the house. You know, dishes were broken, the TVs were on, the lights were on, or something like that. And one day we were in a car, and my dad was like, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? He's like, I've been seeing this witch. And I said, why would you do that? And he's like, well, she's been helping me in a lot of stuff. She's been reading some cards or something like that. And she told me that that there's a really bad lady that put a curse on me and that tried to put a curse on you, but couldn't really make it. And I'm like, that would actually make sense, you know, of everything that's been happening. And like, and when did this supposedly start? And he said, oh, you know, around the time that I came back, around the time that your grandfather died. And I was like, oh gosh, yes, that makes sense. So I told my dad everything about it, everything that's been happening. And then I went to this witch lady, but you know, she wasn't really helpful because she missed the point completely. Like I was dreaming about one thing, she said another thing. So I was kind of skeptical and I left it. And that's kind of like the summary. Up to now, I haven't had any nightmares, like really bad nightmares. I just like 3 weeks ago, that was just like the paralysis, and that's about it.
Now, it would seem, I want to ask you this one question.
I'm sorry. Sorry. I totally forgot. When we went to the witch and everything,
yes,
she told us that the lady that put a curse on us was my grandmother of my mother's side.
Oh my!
And that actually makes a lot of sense because this lady, she's pure evil. She hated us. She hated my dad. She hated my mom. She hated me, and she's just like really, really mean.
Wow.
So,
well, yeah. I'll say this. Here's my question. A lot of people who have had these disturbing experiences, they would walk away from the paranormal. They might not, you know, seek out a paranormal podcast like the Paranormal Podcast or Campfire.
Right.
So I'm just curious, what attracts you to this kind of information and exploring this, even though seems like it's been kind of traumatic?
Well, it was. But then after hearing all these experiences from these other people, well, I feel that I'm not alone and that I'm not crazy, because every time that I told them, they were like, yeah, okay, crazy. And they wouldn't believe me, or they're like, yeah, no. But, even the non-believers, they're like, no, I don't believe in this. But there was this one time,
Exactly.
But there wasn't anyone that told me, okay, you know what, let's sit down, let's talk about it. You need help, or I've been through this, you're not alone. But, I was just alone. I'm an only child. My parents didn't believe me. And I just closed myself up to everyone and didn't tell anyone. But I love to hear all these stories and read about it and explore it. I just loved it. And I just can't get enough of it.
Well, excellent. Well, I'm glad that this has provided you some comfort, and I wish you all the best. And please do keep us updated. And thank you for sharing your story. And again, all the way from Bolivia, it's fantastic. I love the international flavor of podcasting, the fact that we can share stories from all over the world. And Ollie, thank you so much for being a part of the Campfire tonight.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Campfire. We certainly appreciate it. Make sure you never miss an edition of our free Campfire episodes. Go over to jimharold.com/getcampfire and click on the appropriate subscribe button so you get the shows automatically, and you're always alerted, and you're always in touch with the Campfire. So it's over at jimharold.com/getcampfire for those subscribe buttons. And it's a great way to share the love as well with friends. Very easy. And secondly, you may be wondering, hey, Jim, I know you have the free episodes, but how do I get in on all of that treasure trove of Campfire episodes, over 300 going back to 2009? Well, I'm glad you asked. All you have to do is go over to Jim Harold Plus, click on the banner, sign up, and you'll get access to those Campfire episodes and a ton of other episodes we've done on other paranormal podcasts. And altogether, I think we have over 1,600 podcasts over there that you can't get if you're not a member of Jim Harold's Plus Club. It's a great time. We have a great deal going on. Your first month for only $2.95. Or if you want to commit long-term, and we appreciate the commitment, you can get your first year for only $59.50. We think it's a deal, and we hope you'll check it out at jimharoldplus.com. We thank you so much. We'll talk to you next time, and until then, as always, stay spooky. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Jim Harold's Campfire. Tune in again next time for more stories of ordinary people who have experienced extraordinary things.